Good afternoon, colleagues, depending on the country or region you're joining us today. My name is Nurzat, and I'm a manager of UNIDO's Net Zero Partnership for Industrial Decarbonization. I'm very happy to welcome you all to today's webinar session on industrial decarbonization. This is the first session of a webinar series that we are trying to organize on industrial decarbonization. Through this webinar series, we would like to engage in a broad dialogue to explore key pathways for industrial decarbonization with focus on policy, standards, finance, and technology. And today's session will focus on the Volume 2 of the NDC Guidebook that we recently published, which is a resource tool for policymakers to guide them to explore different pathways of industrial decarbonization for NDC implementation. I will brief you guide through the agenda of today's webinar. The presentations will be delivered by a team of UNIDO technical experts, and we will start with the context setting on why industry matters in the 2025 cycle of the NDC update and where does the Volume 2 fits, and this session will be delivered by Ines Ort Alonso. Then we will dive into the actual Volume 2 of the NDC Guidebook, the building blocks and decision tree, and this will be presented by Hugo Salamanca. Then we will go into the country example from Sri Lanka of how the decarbonization dialogue is being applied at a country setting using the Volume 1 and the Volume 2 of the NDC Guidebook, and this will be delivered by our Chief Technical Specialist from Sri Lanka, Jagasdeva Vida Nagama. And lastly, we will have a brief input from the Global Matchmaking Platform Secretariat Maria Vittoria Bini on the opportunities of support that countries can get through the Global Matchmaking Platform. We're trying to make this webinar as engaging as possible, so you will have opportunities. We will ask you questions throughout the webinars, but if you do have inputs, comments, or questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. Thank you, and I think we will start with a bit of context. This webinar is organized by UNIDO's Net Zero Partnership for Industrial Decarbonization, which is a global initiative aimed to support emerging markets and developing economies with decarbonizing heavy emitting industrial sectors such as steel and cement. And our areas of support include supporting countries with developing national strategies and policies for industrial decarbonization, supporting technology collaboration and development of investment-ready proposals, and finally, we facilitate global knowledge exchange and sharing on the topic of industrial decarbonization. And these webinar series are actually organized with the aim of facilitating this global knowledge exchange and understanding of the issue. With this, I turn to our first speaker and presenter, Ines, to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nurzat. So as we just heard, the Net Zero Partnership focuses on heavy industry, mainly cement and steel. These sectors are both the foundation of economic growth and the source of a large share of global emissions, which make them central to any credible climate pathway. Industrial emissions are rising fast and much faster than any other sector since 2020. Heavy industries like cement, steel, and chemicals alone make up 70% of industrial greenhouse gas emissions. And on top of that, 65% of the energy used in industry is still fossil-based. So if we're serious about safeguarding our climate or meeting the Paris agreements, heavy industry has to be part of the solution. In fact, it's a section of the economy that will largely determine whether we can keep global temperatures within 1.5 degrees. At the same time, this transition needs massive investments. Decarbonizing steel alone requires over $300 billion by 2050, and similarly, cement needs large sums of capital investment and new infrastructure. And emerging markets and developing economies will need the largest sum of this investment, up to $2.5 trillion a year for climate-related investments by 2030. But it could still be said that these needs are not yet massive investment opportunities, since technologies are still in early stage, assets last decades, and policies are often lagging behind. So two numbers that we see on the screen tell the story of the importance of NDCs clearly. 66% of business leaders say that the main barrier for investment in infrastructure are the main barrier for investment in the transition is a lack of investment and infrastructure. And 90% of business leaders say that they would invest more if the right policies were in place. So this is why strong national climate plans matter so much. Without a clear commitment, governments and markets face uncertainty at the very moment where we need decisive action. And that is exactly what the new round of national determined contributions, or NDCs, is meant to address. This year, just a few weeks ago, countries submitted a new round of climate, or just last week, countries submitted a new round of national climate commitments, known as nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. And these plans show how countries will cut emissions, build climate resilience, and transform their economies up to 2035. More than 100 countries submitted their updated NDCs at COP, and this covered over 70% of global emissions. For industry, this was hugely important as NDCs send the long-term signals that industries and financiers need, as we've just seen, and they show the direction of travel, which technologies will be prioritized, and where governments should invest. So they create this certainty that can unlock private capital. Before we move on, let's do a quick pulse check or a quick poll to check how familiar we are with industry in this latest round of NDCs, or climate commitments. So what share of updated NDCs in the 2025 cycle include industry as a mitigation area? You can select the option that seems most intuitively right on the poll that has popped up. Let's take a moment to vote. Do you all see the poll? Okay. Wow, well, the answer is D. Over 94% of nationally determined contributions in 2025 mentioned industry as a priority or as a mitigation area. These figures come from the UNDP Climate Promise Analysis that was presented at COP30 and an explainer launched by UNIDO and UNDP. In an explainer presented by UNIDO and UNDP, and around 1/3 of these NDCs, as we see in the last bar graph, include quantified measures for hard-to-abate sectors like steel, cement, and chemicals, which is quite a big change compared to previous cycles. Now that we've seen how central industry has become in the new NDCs relative to previous cycles, the question is, how do countries move from stating their commitments to delivering them? The Net Zero Partnership has an NDC support package which helps countries across the full cycle of NDC development and implementation, and it has three main components. First, technical assistance. We work directly with governments to identify relevant industrial policies and measures, to set goals and support stakeholder engagement, which is often the starting point for countries that are just integrating industry into their NDCs for the first time. The second element is the guidance book, which is composed of 2 volumes. Volume 1, which was about integrating industry into NDC planning and setting commitments, and Volume 2, which we are presenting today. And it's the practical toolkit that helps countries understand what they can do and how they can do it related to the NDCs. The third and last component is a modeling scenario tool called Mitica. It's developed by the UNFCCC, and it's a software that helps countries create and track their NDC scenarios including the policies and measures that they choose. It can take historical emission data and estimate mitigation impacts and show the difference between different pathways with and without these measures for industrial decarbonization. And together, these three elements create a full pathway from identifying priorities to selecting measures to modeling and tracking progress. And now to understand where Volume 2 of the NDC Guidebook sits in the bigger picture, let's zoom into the guidance book component of the NDC support package and compare it briefly with Volume 1. Volume 1 was published in January of 2025 of this year, and it explains how to integrate industry and industrial commitments into NDCs. It focuses on assessments, planning processes, and how to validate industrial commitments as well. And Volume 2 is the next step. It's, as I mentioned, it's a practical toolkit that helps users and policymakers move from ambition to implementation through two main steps. First, offering a curated list of industrial decarbonization measures, and second, to offering a structured way or a pathway for countries to identify which measures and policy frameworks fit their context best. So in summary, it's about helping governments and policymakers turn their commitments into tailored industrial pathways. And before Ugo walks us through the details of Volume 2, this is a quick overview of what Volume 2 actually does through the three core elements of the guidebook. First of all the policies and measures are organized under the 5 building block framework. These 5 building blocks of industrial decarbonization are the foundation and the structure of the whole guidebook. Second, the guidebook includes a decision tree, which helps users identify which building block is relevant for their industrial landscape. From there, they can explore the building block-specific options for policies and technologies. And third, each building block has a menu of decarbonization options, which is linked to the annex, where each measure is assessed for expected emission impact and indicative costs. And with this quick overview, I will now hand it over to my colleague Ugo, who will walk you through the details of these elements and show you how to navigate Volume 2.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you, Nurzad. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues around the world. Apologies in advance. I tend to speak fast, and I believe there is no button to slow down the speed of the speaker yet on these webinars. So as mentioned, we have been trying to develop these guidebooks to really support you in the development of your industrial decarbonization strategies. We know that NDCs have been a major step, but the work is starting now. We need to really move now to action. And these two guidebooks are really designed for that, not only to guide you through the process of NDC submission and enhancement, but also really to develop strategies that will have a real impact, and we hope in your specific conditions. Here are some caveats. We understand that different countries have different timelines and different ambitions, and we will be walking through the building blocks that we believe can support your work. By no means we are implying that certain have to be met before the others, nor any sort of ranking, but we believe that by regrouping the measures and the policy frameworks using these blocks can help you navigate into the multitudes of choices that we have, making it as efficient as possible. Next slide, please. So we will start with material efficiency. The definition of this is to reduce the input for a given output. So this will need to target the full life cycle of products, from the design, where we want to really optimize the need for key materials, making products lighter, using the exact amount or the minimum amount of materials, but also anticipating the full lifetime of the product from the beginning, ensuring that they can have a longer lifetime and also can be recycled. Also addressing the manufacturing process, reducing waste as much as possible, and using those waste. Finally, during the lifetime of the product, of course, we need to ensure that we are making the most of these products, extending lifetime of products such as buildings, but also, of course, key materials. And finally, at the end of the lifetime, we need to ensure that we recycle as much as possible. We believe that integrating this building block in industry strategy will bring multiple opportunities and benefits, among which, of course, to be one of the most cost-efficient ways to address GHG emissions by reducing the need for inputs and the overall need for production, but also improving the resilience of our industries by reducing the dependency of supply chains. Finally, this is really job intensive. Really, the benefits of material efficiency for economies are major. We see that it's in industry and in emerging economies where most of the jobs could be created according to these measures that we have listed. Recycling, as you can see here, would create about 45 jobs per $1 million invested in recycling. So really a major dimensions to have in mind. Now we move to energy efficiency, which we define as now that we have reduced the input for a given output, we will reduce the amount of energy required to produce that output. This will imply to address kind of maybe some lacks in the market. So addressing minimum performance standards to ensure that we improve overall our performance. We will also need to scale up best practices, through mechanisms such as the energy management systems. So we raise the level, we ensure that best practices are in place, we ensure that people know what the best technologies are for a given equipment, and we provide the adequate incentives for those equipment to be scaled up. Again, it plays a key role in the development of an industry decarbonization strategy because it addresses the same key opportunities as material efficiency. It is the most efficient the most cost efficient way to reduce global greenhouse gases. It actually, the figures show that by investing in industry energy efficiency, we are actually having a negative cost for tons of CO2 emitted. As you can see here on the graph, if you invest in energy efficiency, it will have a negative cost, meaning that you will be actually gaining money by reducing GHG emissions. So really have to have in mind that material efficiency, energy efficiency are two key resources that all countries have. Some have natural resources, but energy efficiency and material efficiency is something that opportunities and untapped potential that everyone has. So it will not only be cost efficient, but sorry if we can stay on the previous slide. It will not only be cost efficient, but it will also improve resilience by reducing dependency on fossil fuels and on energy overall. And finally, it will create local jobs. Energy efficiency, material efficiency are oftentimes relying on local jobs. So material efficiency, energy efficiency. Now we know that once we have addressed those two, we'll need to move to different vectors of energy, electrification, but also low carbon energy feedstock. One of the main challenges in industry is that we know that we use energy or fossil fuels in both dimensions. One is, of course, to produce heat. 2/3 of the energy used in industry is for process heat, but also fossil fuels and feedstock are used for specific and complex processes. So to address those two, we will need the combination of both electrification and the use of alternative feedstock and energy vectors. If we can click. Yes, again, including those two in the industry strategy will allow us to cover heat through electric processes such as heat pumps, and for the higher level temperatures where electrification is still not readily available, we can also have access to alternative fuels such as hydrogen and ammonia. noting that this again represents a very large untapped potential heat pumps among the electric options that we have, and also will, if we can click to show you the again, please. So if we see here the abatement cost and the payback period, heat pumps for low to medium range temperatures are available. So here to note that among the electrification options that we have, some are market ready. And they represent an opportunity to leapfrog for certain economies, to go to already electrified heat processes, for instance, and also to seize the major opportunities of new industries and new supply chains. But this won't require long-term planning to ensure that the new supply chains are put in place. We see if we click that opportunities are spread across the world. These are the number of jobs created by heat pump deployment. As we can see in yellow, if we click, the opportunities are not only in emerging economies and of course China, but also in the rest of the world. So heat pumps represent a large amount of jobs that can be created, so an opportunity to leapfrog our industry. Noting that the figures show that it's about 800,000 jobs that could be created by 2030. And as you can see, 1/3 in the rest of the world. If we move now to the last pillar, the last building block of our guidebook, carbon capture. So as we know, there will be residual emissions because some processes are not yet decarbonizable, if that exists, and we will need to address also the last bits and some of the processes that are the hardest to abate. 1/3 of industrial energy demands is in high temperature, and we will need to address those as well. If we click, this will require, so although we know that CCUS should not be the first step to consider, we will need to anticipate this and create the conditions for CCUS to be ready for when we need it. This will require clear regulatory frameworks, but also clear carbon pricing mechanisms. If we click again, we would need to include that block in industry strategies, because for some processes and some industry, this is the only available option today, and also it's one of the few options that we have at hand that can be replicated and address existing assets. As we know, in industry, some assets are long-lived, and we will need to address those, and carbon capture is one of the simplest single measures that can be reproduced in the world. So we have navigated through the 5 building blocks. Yes, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we have navigated to the 5 building blocks. Again, by no means we are implying here a ranking. It's just that it's just a way we suggest to approach these, to structure the different measures. And we have, to do that, developed decision trees. And again, this is not meant for decision making, but this is just really to navigate to the process, and you're free to use this as you seem most adequate to your specific conditions. But we hope that it will support your work and provide at least some sort of structure to navigate through the different measures. If we click now, we will use an exercise to navigate this first decision tree, and Ines will be making the magic work. But the case study, the exercise is as such. You have been appointed, director of the decarbonization unit of your country, and the first diagnostic of this situation is that you have a cement sector that is relying on outdated equipment. We know how fossil fuel volatility price volatility can impact the economy. We see that there's also some wastes in terms of heat losses, and at the same time that we're facing with challenges that we are not able to switch fuels due to lack of infrastructure. As we know, hydrogen producing ammonia requires very new technologies, and this is not available. So if we go back to the decision tree so that you have it in mind, I don't know if that's possible. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Ines. So again, you're head of the department and you need to develop a strategy to decarbonize your cement sector, which is relying on old equipment. There are some waste heat. Alternative fuels are difficult to obtain, and fuel prices are rising. I'll give you a few seconds. I have a timer on my side, and you can see how you would use. I will then navigate with you through the decision tree, again, just to provide an illustration of how we believe that this can be used, but you're free to use it in any other way. I'll give you a few seconds. Head of your department, cement sector, old equipment, some waste, rising fuel prices, alternative fuels not available. How to develop an industry decarbonization strategy. I'll give you, sorry, I know I speak too much. I think the responses. Thank you very much for engaging. This is a secret recruitment process, so be careful what you answer. We're looking for a head of the department. Okay, now how we would approach this. So this is just an example, right? First, we see that cement, as we can see, the first question, it's a yes or no approach. But by no means it's a decision making tool. This is just really to navigate and to give you some structure and some maybe illustration of how we can use this. The first thing is, okay, we have cement that has not yet been addressed, at least. So we enter our decision tree. We move to material efficiency, and we see, of course, that cement will require large amounts of input. And also we see that, there's still waste heat that has not yet been recovered. So material efficiency, definitely one that we have to keep in our minds to develop our strategy. So it's a yes. And then you can see the yes arrow that takes you to the annexes. The guidebook in its PDF version will have a hyperlink, will take you to the list of measures that you can consider for material efficiency. But not an exhaustive list, but at least an initial one for you to consider. We move then to, as you can see, energy efficiency. Okay, energy efficiency are these industries, high energy demand. Yes, cement is a very energy intensive sector, and we see that we can improve the equipment. We say we have old equipment, old rotary kilns, and best practices are not in place, as we have waste heat noticed. So we also have energy efficiency. You can click, it will take you to the annexes. Low carbon energy and electrification. So cement, as we know, is a process that requires high level temperatures above 1000 degrees. And as mentioned, alternative fuels are not readily available. So electrification and low carbon fuels and feedstock might not be the ones that we might prioritize at first. Again, this is not meant, this doesn't mean that you should discard them. It's just that as a first step, might not be the priority. Finally, carbon capture and storage. As we know, as we have mentioned, for high level temperatures, there will be, and for processes that have an inherent CO2 emissions, as the calcination of clay in the process of producing clinker, will need to be addressed. So CCUS, not the first one to consider, we hope, but at least one to have in mind and to start planning as we develop the other ones. So in summary, and looking at the poll, what we have, material efficiency, energy efficiency, definitely ones to consider, and CCUS. Low carbon energy and feedstock and electrification definitely will be useful, but if we navigate the tree, we believe that these ones might not bring the most in the immediate future for this specific case, might not be the ones that produce the largest opportunities. But again, just an illustration on how to navigate. It will take you to the building block, and you can click on the annex to have access to most of the measures. If we move now to the next slide. So building blocks, we have seen how to navigate the decision tree. Now that you have the building block, we believe that by developing the adequate policy framework, you'll be unlocking most of the potential for each of these building blocks. What is the policy framework? It's a combination of three types of policies: regulation, information, and incentives. Regulation are setting the minimum standards to be met. They will be creating, again, this push approach, setting minimum levels to be met. Information are meant to drive and to guide the different stakeholders in their choices through labels, through capacity building, so that the different stakeholders can go for the most efficient and the most decarbonized options. Finally, incentives will make sure that we have this pull approach and that we go above the minimum that have been set through regulation. So combining regulation, information, and incentives are a way, we believe, to unlock the full potential of these different blocks and will create the enabling factors. So how do we navigate this new decision tree? So you have selected your building block. You're now trying to develop the policy framework. And here it's about answering these key questions. Again, this is not meant for a decision-making process, but just to provide a structure that we believe can support you in your work. So as we see, is energy efficiency reflected in a country strategy and NDC? If we take the example just above, we see that energy efficiency doesn't seem to be a core part of the national policies. So the answer to it would be no. And the first step would be then to make the case for energy efficiency in the industry decarbonization strategy. So this is advocating for the multiple benefits of energy efficiency, a bit as we have done now, highlighting how it will be supporting resilience of economies, how it will be creating jobs, and of course, how much CO2 it will be abating. And then you go through this decision tree in the similar manner, trying to answer each of these questions and see, okay, then I can reinforce regulation, I can reinforce incentives, so that you have a balanced policy framework. We selected the building blocks. We are balancing our policy framework. And now, if we move to this next slide, we will be developing a sequence of the different measures. Please note, again, this is an illustration and something that we provide in the hope that it will support your work. We understand that different countries have different strategies and different priorities. So defining them into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. All of these are hyperlinked, so you can click and it will take you to the detail of the policies. And here, what we want really to highlight is that we are, the work that has been done has been to provide key blocks that will allow, to support you in your work to really estimate, evaluate how this policy can be translated to your own situation. First, it will describe the policy and how it applies and how it's implemented and how you can be using it as an opportunity to decarbonize. Then the second one will be the methodology that can be used to evaluate the potential in GHG emission. And finally, we'll have the MAC curve that allow to evaluate approximately how much CO2 is being abated for each unit of investment. So you have these three blocks that allow to really maybe evaluate the different measures, and this can be applied to other measures, really to see how you want to prioritize and how you want to use them in your decarbonization strategy. The overall guidebook has been, really focused to provide as much information as we have been able to gather. There's, multiple measures that you can have a look at, and that you can use in this, sequence that we have mentioned. You selected your building block, then you navigated to the policy framework, and now you're populating your policies through short, medium, and long-term strategies. If we move to the next slide, all of these will be relying on specific case studies, both from the global north or emerged economies, and also a case study based on emerging markets. Here, you can see how we have tried to address and illustrate how different countries have, developed their policy package, combining the different policies, ensuring that they build on each other and provide the maximum opportunities and unlock the maximum potential. All of these again have interlinked and give you more access to what has been done over the world, because as we know, the key thing is how does this can be implemented on the ground, and we're so happy that Jagas was able to join us today. He will be presenting on Sri Lanka's case, but really to build all of this work on real life examples. Yes, if we move to the next slide before my colleague takes over. Among the questions that we wanted for you was if you think that there is one specific building block that we should focus on in potential in our next webinar, to potentially include it and have a deep dive. Material efficiency, energy efficiency, low carbon feedstock, electrification, and CCUS. So again, the building blocks, we navigate, we find the ones that we believe are, can be containing the largest opportunities. Then we have a decision tree that allows us to determine the policy framework. And finally, we have a list of measures with a methodology to evaluate them and to see how we want to prioritize them. Again, all of these are illustrations, and we understand that all countries have different approaches for that. We hope that this will support your work in developing not only the enhanced NDCs, but most importantly, the strategies that will allow you to meet national commitments. And on that note, I will stop. I'm very happy to answer any questions in the chat or in the follow-ups. And over to you, Ines or Jagath.
Hugo, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you, Nurzat and Ines, for giving this opportunity to share our experience with these NDC guidebooks. So first, let me give you a brief introduction about the project, because then you will realize how these guidebooks are important for our project and ongoing project activities. The Accelerating Industries Climate Response Sri Lanka project is funded by the European Union and implemented by UNIDO with the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development, and Ministry of Energy as the government counterparts in Sri Lanka. The objective of this project is to support implementation of industry sector NDCs. And I remember even the Nurzat was in the process sometimes back. The UNIDO was very well to win this project because of its proven track records of bringing global knowledge and best practices into local context. So next slide, please. So in this process, actually, the project played the lead role in developing NDC 3.0 for the industry sector. And in the process, we realized that lack of institutional arrangement, actually poor institutional arrangement, the lack of data and data sharing mechanism, and not having a capacity to set the targets and the enhancement. So we use this guidebook to guide the volume 1 to guide this process in Sri Lankan industry sector NDC development. So when you see these pictures, it reminds me that the journey we passed through this process, it's not a linear process because we had to have multiple different type of activities in this process, the stakeholder consultation, the meeting sectoral leads, and knowledge dissemination programs, awareness programs, and sometimes discussions with the higher level officials in the government and industries. So in this process, we kept the government targeted and motivated for this process, including the top level engagement. And parallelly, we work with the industries to make sure the generation and reporting the good quality data on regular basis. Next slide, please. So after effectively utilizing volume 1 for our work, we are happy to see that the volume 2 is published, and we already see the great potential in utilizing volume 2 as a key reference document for our upcoming work. So in this slide, I wanted to focus on the key characteristics of Sri Lankan industry sector and link it how we want to proceed with the volume 2. As you know, each country industry sector might be different from one to another in terms of scale and the priority subsectors. Then to match the context and the requirement, so we'll customize and go in deep to use volume 2 better. So I'll give you a couple of examples how we are going to customize this thing. So in this reference document, and even the Ines initially mentioned, you have identified steel and cement are priority sectors at the global scale, but when it comes to national context, so those are not the priority sectors in the country. So when we customize that into local context, we have to identify our the priority sectors. So in our situation, it's a textile and apparel sector, and most probably food and beverage sector. And the third one is the plastic and rubber sector. So we need that level of customization if we customize this volume 2 into the local context. The second thing that you have identified, and Hugo very clearly explained, the 5 pillars, the decarbonization pillars. But when we customize that into, we have to identify and prioritize some pillars and work on that, because in some cases, the carbon capture and storage is not a near future potential technology in the country to decarbonize. But we can find more cheap opportunities like energy efficiency improvement, resource efficiency improvement, electrifying industrial heat. So we can prioritize based on the local context. So please, yeah. Here you can see some specific activity components that would be benefit from volume 2 during the second half of the project. Actually, we are going to customize volume 2 of the NDC guidebook for the local context. So that's a kind of localization. Then develop for credit course module on industrial decarbonization, targeting undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs in national and private universities, including government sector training institutions. Then develop industrial decarbonization roadmaps for 2 energy-intensive industry subsectors. And finally, we are planning to develop the NDC implementation plan for the industry sector. So in conclusion, the credit of our achievement and impact should goes to the UNIDO team, Nursat and the team who engage in producing this great resource volume 1 and volume 2. And we promise that we will make best out of them in our project activities. So with that remarks, I conclude my part, and thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaga. Thank you, Hugo and Ines, for this presentation. Now we turn to the input from the Global Matchmaking Platform Secretariat to present opportunities of support that is available to countries for industrial decarbonization through the GMP process. Mavi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nurzat. So good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I will give you a brief introduction to the initiative and how it can be accessed by countries. So countries are now working to move their NDCs from commitments to real implementation. And the NDC UNIDO Guidebook and the Global Matchmaking Platform for Industry Decarbonization, so how we call it the GMP, are actually tools that could help advance this. So the Net Zero Partnership support can in fact be accessed by and through the request to the GMP. So the GMP, it's a climate club initiative hosted by UNIDO, and it is designed to help countries advance their industry decarbonization goals through three core functions. So the global, the matchmaking, and finally the platform. So first on the global function, basically, it elevates low emission industrialization internationally and keeping industry on the global agendas and helping countries frame their needs in line with their NDCs and global long-term strategies. So on the second component, so the matchmaking function, it's a core function. Basically, this enables countries to request concrete and tailored support on industry decarbonization from a network of delivery partners. And this includes the Net Zero Partnership of UNIDO. So the process to make a request is as follows. A country submits a request to the GMP. The request is then detailed and validated by the government along with the GMP Secretariat. The request is then shared with the network of delivery partners, and the partners then express interest to support one or more requests. In the end, the country selects its preferred delivery partners, one or more delivery partners, and this is what we call a match. So far, the GMP has already supported different requests and basically related all to industry decarbonization, including NDC enhancement. And now looking ahead, it's open to receive requests, for example, on support on NDC implementation. The third function, so the last function of the GMP, it's what we call the platform function, and this provides basically a space for countries and partners to exchange and learn. So the GMP network, so the delivery partners that can respond to countries' requests, counts around 24 delivery partners, which include international organizations, philanthropies, and development banks. So the platform offers basically an entry point both for countries and delivery partners and facilitates global knowledge sharing through, for example, co-created tools, workshops, and events. So basically together, the NDC UNIDO Guidebook and the GMP form a practical package. The guidebook, as we understand, guides countries in strengthening industrial NDCs, and the GMP connects countries to the partners who can help them achieve those NDCs. So as the Secretariat, we encourage countries to consider the GMP for facilitating their NDC implementation. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you. Over to you, Nurzat.
Thank you, Maria Vittoria. And again, just to reiterate Mavi's point that if you would like to receive support on NDC implementation for industrial decarbonization, please reach out to the Global Matchmaking Platform for any further information how to submit a request through the GMP. And we, as a Net Zero Partnership of UNIDO, we will be very happy to respond to some of these requests along with other network of delivery partners. I'm cognizant of the time and we have only 10 minutes left. And before we give any floor to any remaining questions, I just wanted to remind you that we will be organizing a number of webinars, which will be organized by a number of institutions. The next there will be webinar series organized by the Global Matchmaking Platform, and the very first one will take place on the 10th of December. These are high-level sessions linking countries, partners, and financiers to support NDC implementation. So please follow the link and register for this webinar. We will be also having deep dive technical discussions on certain topics of industrial decarbonization. So the other series of webinars that we will be launching are on low carbon steel, and the very first webinar session in that series will take place on the 2nd of December. So again, you can follow the registration links that are shown on the screen to register for these events. And we will, of course, continue these webinar sessions that we started today under the Net Zero Partnership program, where we will explore broad key pathways for industrial decarbonization. And we thank you very much for taking participation in the poll and expressing interest, which topic you would like to explore next, which building block. And we noted that electrification process change was ranked quite high by you. So we can assure you that we will be organizing our webinar, a dedicated webinar on this topic, where we can dive deeper into the subject and show a bit of examples and how this is being pursued in a different country context, and bringing the examples and that technologies in various industrial subsectors. So we have 7 minutes left, so maybe we can open the floor for any questions that we can have from the participants. You can use both the chat function. I hope people can chat, yeah, we can pose the questions, or you can also unmute yourself. Please present yourself and before you ask your question. Thanks a lot.
I think we have to unmute participants. So if you could raise your hand, and then we can unmute you.
I see. Okay.
If there's
So
any
yes.
contributions or questions.
There's also, I think, a question in the Q&A that we can start with while people start. So the question in the Q&A is, what kind of data are crucial for decarbonization of steel and cement? So what we... Sorry, I'm happy to take this one, if okay. One of the key things, of course, that we have seen, in the countries that we have worked with, is that first of all, evaluating the energy use from different energy sources is one of the key first steps. How much coal, how much gas is used in the cement and steel sector. This allows us to have indicators of emissions for unit of output, but also by plant. That's one of the key data that we need to start with, which is to have the energy balance. Then, of course, having an overview of the technologies that are used. As we mentioned in the case study that we had, what is the current technologies, what are the current technologies available to evaluate the potential for improvement, either from a replacement or for improvement of what is existing. Of course, as mentioned, we will also need to determine the practices. As we mentioned, energy management systems are a key angle for improvement. But the concept behind it is, what type of behavior could be changed so that energy are saved. So recycling, reusing, etc. A bit what the building blocks is trying to achieve, kind of having a logic in how to go about decarbonization. I hope that addresses the question, but happy to take more detail if required. I'll stop here. We have a hand raised.
Yes. Okay, great. So we were able to unmute.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. This is Ming Fei with UniCleanTech. So we're a company focused on commercial decarbonization solutions for the refining industry. And our units have shown very good abatement result in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, and it's 25.6% of that unit and $4 per barrel, which is very good for the refining industry. But however, when we're doing marketing, we see that they are very conservative in adopting new technology because they had their original equipment, which is very old, and they like to keep it that way. And they're not taking in new technology for the new industry. So is there a way that UNIDO could help us to bridge that gap and facilitate development of the solution.
Thank you for raising this question. We can probably answer, the answer not specifically for the refining sector, but on the industry sector at large. So you actually pointed to one of the key challenges that exist for industrial decarbonization, that lack of incentives or lack of push from the policy side for investment in decarbonization technologies. Yes, UNIDO does provide policy supports to countries in identifying what would be the right incentive scheme and policy strategies to incentivize investment in industry decarbonization technologies, whether it is in the refining sector or for us, the focus is more on a heavy emission industrial sectors such as steel, cement, aluminum, glass, etc. Yes, so to answer that question, I don't know if my colleagues want to add to that. Otherwise, we can give space to one more question because I see a hand raised, and then we can close this webinar session. Thank you. I see a hand from Helano.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Elano Rangel from Brazil. I'm a Sustainable Business Development Executive at Argo Group. And we are here in Brazil developing the EcoFusion project. And this project aims to replace petcoke using syngas technology from plastics and biomass. And considering that Brazil is now entering the operational phase of its industrial NDC implementation, and that the National Industrial Decarbonization Strategy, it was launched during the COP30 recently, and it is moving to consolidate demand-side instruments such as low-carbon product certification and green public procurement. Would the GMP, my question is, would the GMP accept a country request focused specifically on supporting the deployment and MRV standardization of waste to syngas fuel switching in the cement sector, so that technologies like ours at Cimento Apodi can be formally integrated into the national NDC implementation portfolio?
Thank you for your question. This is a brilliant question. We love the questions like this. So Mavi, over to you. Can such request be submitted to GMP?
Yes, of course. So basically, there is no sector-specific guidelines, let's say, on a request that can be made. But we had requests related, for example, on MRVs. The only caveat is that basically it has to advance industry decarbonization goals, and the request needs to be made by a government official and authority. So this is the process that needs to be followed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues, again for joining today's webinar session and for participating in the discussion. We appreciate your time and thank you for speakers for presenting, and we hopefully see you again at our next webinar session. Have a good evening, day, night, depending on where you are. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you very much.
rest of the day.
Thank you.